Welcome back to Channel L News, where our intro animation is paid for and copyright free. Now it's time we move on to a very special segment all about the immensely popular video game company known as Nintendo, and why their products are so engaging with the youth of today. If that piques your interest, then don't change that channel, because our man on the field, Tomboski Quantavius, is here to give us an exclusive look. Take it away, Tom.
You want me to write a story on what?
It's all the craze right now. The data shows Nintendo is highly marketable due to the company's rise in relevance and many being extremely nostalgic for it. The kind of range is too massive to pass up on. And you're currently on thin ice, so this story better be a damn good one.
Look, mate, you may be my boss, and also the news anchor for some reason, but you're the last person that should be throwing around threats! Do you know who I am?
An employee. But that can change if you so desire.
Oh, you wish. Don't act like this crumbling news station will last even a day without me. I'm the foundation holding everything together. I'm the crust on your pizza, the cream filling in your donut.
You have 24 hours, Mr. Quantavius, or else your career is over.
Fine. You want to put my skills to the test? You want a newsworthy story out of me? I'm gonna story the shit out of you in this entire worthless station, and maybe then you'll think twice about questioning my talent! The f*** is a Nintendo? Thank you for responding so quickly to this urgent matter. Do you know why I called you here today? You didn't call me here. This is my house. Why are you here? Who are you? I heard you're a fan of this so-called Nintendo. I dabble. As I suspected, I was told you were a reliable source. Someone with smarts, quick wit, and charisma. Really? No. But you could be, Mr. Braden. It's Brandon. I know what I said. Now, what do you know about this Nintendo? Well, what is there to say? It's a company that primarily makes video games. It is? Yeah. How much experience do you have with Nintendo? Okay. Let's just get to the point. Why is this something that people, or more rather you, like?
Why do I like Nintendo? These are the questions. I guess it could all be traced back to my childhood. Christmas of 2006, I think? The day where my mother gifted my sister a DS alongside a copy of New Super Mario Bros., of which I immediately made a habit of stealing to play for myself. From there, it was kinda a snowball effect. Eventually, I got my own DS after enough begging, replayed New Super Mario Bros. Until my fingers went numb, used PictoChat a lot, I remember that very vividly. As a child, I guess the concept of writing a message and someone else seeing it on their own DS blew my mind. Later, I branched out with other titles like Kirby Superstar Ultra and Namco Museum, saw my cousin playing Super Mario 64 DS one day, and witnessing Mario in 3D for the first time also blew my mind. The bar's usually low when you're young. Oh, and then the Wii happened, and that was a whole adventure in itself. Completing New Super Mario Bros. Wii with my siblings, consistently being bad at Mario Kart, and don't you even get me started on Just Dance. Oh my god, and how could I forget Mario Galaxy 2? Well, I didn't. I was just saving it till the end because it's just the best. Oh, and while we're on the topic, and I have the stage...
Galaxy 2 is better than Galaxy 1?
But my early years with Nintendo don't stop there. At the same time all this was going down, we had an old computer. But not only did we have an old computer, we also had a disc that contained a whole bunch of NES and SNES ROMs, as well as emulators of which to play them on. I remember primarily using an application called Nesticle.
Does anyone remember Nesticle? I remember Nesticle.
This was my treasure trove back then, and how I ended up experiencing the NES's library for the first time. Though, can't say I'm a fan of the severed hand cursor, and... yeah, looking back, it definitely didn't age well when compared to emulator programs of today. What is happening here? But I mean, the name of your application is an amalgamation of NES and testicle. How far were you planning to get? The sound especially is just all around inaccurate and atrocious. However, this thing came out in like 1997, so I'm willing to give it a break. And of course, we can't forget Z-SNES, or Z-SNES, which was my fabled introduction to the world of SNES titles. This emulator, also released in 1997, however, doesn't contain a phallus-based name.
Then what the fuck is the point?
And, unlike Nesticle, still holds up pretty well even to this day. Like, there really aren't many noticeable issues with the emulation. It still feels great and runs smoothly. Also, I just wanted to point out, after going through this old folder of SNES ROMs from like 2002, for some reason, Sonic is a game listed here. It's weird, right? How did they know this was my favorite game on that console? You know, back in the day, this disc kind of felt like it just materialized out of nowhere. It actually still kind of feels like that. I have zero idea where these ROMs originally came from, or who dumped them onto PC. But without their efforts, my childhood would be void of a boy and his blob, so thanks for that.
So, your love of Nintendo is purely because of nostalgia? Not exactly. I do have a lot of fondness for that era, though. Keeps me coming back to some of those really bad games, but blinds me to the fact they are bad because life was better then? Sounds like an unhealthy mindset. Yeah, I'm gonna get that taken out soon. But that's not to say I still don't play the newer games Nintendo releases. In fact, I'd go so far as to say I enjoy them more than the ones from my childhood.
When the Wii U launched, I felt like the only person in the world who owned that damn thing. And I might as well have been. Like, in 2013, you could not find a single motherfucker who owned one of these things. Everyone either had an Xbox One or PlayStation 4. You know, in case they need something to beat you with after finding out you owned a Wii U. I own two. So in terms of friends, the subject was lacking. But hot damn, I had Super Mario 3D World to fill that void right up. As well as Mario Kart 8, Nintendo Land, New Super Mario Bros. U. I mean, sure, they were all games that are arguably more fun with other people. And then the Switch rolled around in March of 2017, and later on in October of that same year, so too did my favorite game of all time, Super Mario Odyssey. Ah man, let me tell you, when I say this is probably the best game Nintendo ever produced, then I'm saying this is probably the best game Nintendo ever produced. The physics, the movesets, the locations, the characters, the freaking music, all so enjoyable from start to finish. And that's just one of the console's many games. Add an amazing supporting cast of all this, and yeah, it's no wonder the Switch succeeded in not only the tiny grape that is my heart, but also financially.
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, you like Nintendo just because you grew up with it and find the games fun? Well, in a less interesting, simplified way, yeah. I can do you one better and say it wasn't enough to create a compelling news story. Like, what am I supposed to use here? Local nerd solidifies his virginity by obsessing over a video game company. Wow, did you come up with that all by yourself? Oh, I took improv in high school. I got more headlines. Ah, here we go. No, just... Look, if it's more material you're in need of, why not ask other Nintendo fans what their backstories and opinions are? There are more of you? I thought you were supposed to be a professional journalist. Oh, I'm a professional in a lot of fields. News anchoring, theater, ghost hunting. But you're right. What kind of journalist would I be if I let your pathetic backstory be the definitive resolution? Everyone knows the complete truth requires detail, depth, and discovery. The 3Ds I'm gonna insert right into this mystery.
Gross.
And by that, I mean I have to approach the question from multiple angles. I can't believe I didn't see this sooner. You're clearly not enough!
Ouch.
I have way more work to do than I thought. And a lot more people to interrogate. I must go. Thank you for your time, Mr. Brody.
It's Brandon.
Oh, yep. Sounds good. See you, mate.
He took my wallet.
Alright, here we go. So, what is your favorite Nintendo franchise?
Mario, hands down, it's Mario. I don't know why. I've always had a I've always gravitated towards Mario, and as much as I like Zelda and I like Pikmin and I like these other franchises, Mario is is always my go-to, and I'm always excited when a new Mario game comes out.
I want to say Pokemon. I think I can count Pokemon. Yeah, Nintendo has a stake in it because I don't know, it just always appealed to me. All the multimedia aspects of it, trading cards, anime, games. I had all of that, man. I was invested. So, Pokemon, yeah.
It's always got to be Mario. Like it's basic, but Mario is just. It was the first one I found, and I've played 2D Mario, Mario Kart Wii, everything Mario. It's me.
Definitely Pokemon. That's been like one of my main interests since I was like 10 years old.
Currently, I would have to say the Mario franchise now, since they've been cracking up with so many games like lately. But to my dearest heart, I would have to say a lot of Kirby and Star Fox.
Yeah, The Legend of Zelda is just one that I've always stuck with. I even remember getting games specifically because it was like The Legend of Zelda, like Okami back then. But because I mainly grew up with Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and then I moved over. I skipped the GameCube. Holy sin of a Nintendo fan. We just didn't have a GameCube when he was younger, so I didn't play the Wind Waker until much later. But I played Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, the old NES games, Link to the Past, all those. It's just ones I grew up with.
I mean, I don't want to be too basic, but I do really like Mario. I mean, I think it's just so... Everyone loves Galaxy. Everyone loves, Mario Kart. We all love Odyssey, stuff like that. It's just so many good games in the Mario franchise. I mean, obviously there's Zelda too. I'd love to get into Zelda a little bit more, but Mario's just had like a grip on everyone. And I think that's just the one that reliable. Everyone loves it. Can't go wrong.
So, in your opinion, what is the biggest thing about Nintendo that keeps you coming back?
I think it's like the quality assurance, because they are really good at making a good game, and they're really good at consistently making good games. Not gonna say with every franchise. When I go into like a game with Nintendo, I know right away that I am probably going to like it, and I know that there's gonna be something that I really enjoy about it, whether that's gonna be like the art style, the art direction, the gameplay, the music. There's always going to be an aspect that I like, because even with the games from Nintendo that I don't like, there are things about them that I do like.
I would have to say mostly the music. Yeah, whenever I just hook up one of the Nintendo songs on YouTube and just listen to it while I work on things or just going to places, I just hear most of the songs that I heard, and it just leads me right back into those games and such. And it's a good time.
I think it's the experience. There's a reason people go back to like the GameCube or the N64. There's a reason people hold the SNES and the NES in such high regard. It's just the Nintendo difference. Like you literally, it's the controllers, it's the method, it's just the polish they put in their games. I think that's what it is. Like you have Nintendo games that are just so obnoxiously good at what they do. I mean, they've had some ups and downs, but for the most part, like the Switch has had so many bangers. Like you can't resist Mario Odyssey. You can't resist Zelda on the Switch. You can't resist anything they've been putting out. It's just, they have that level of polish to their first party games. It's just deflated the argument of them being just a software developer for me. Because, I don't know, they need to have their own hardware for their own experiences. They have their own stuff and it works so good for Nintendo.
So, here's an interesting question. What benefits do you think Nintendo has over other video game companies?
Nintendo is just casual. That's how I would describe it. Nintendo's very casual oriented. If you are just, if you're just kind of a chill gamer, you don't really game all the time, it's not really your super big passion or anything, but you want a game, then Nintendo switches the system for you. You can take it anywhere you want, unless you're playing Fortnite, and then you can't do that because it's online.
When you think about it, like logically, except for the thing I just mentioned, where they have consistently really high quality games across like pretty much all their IPs. Like, you think about console power and you think about that, like stuff like that, they don't really do quote unquote a lot better. I think it really is just their vast range of IPs, iconic IPs and franchises that they have. So like Sony obviously has quite a few, especially now after the PS4, like God of War, Horizon, stuff like that. Immediately coming to my Xbox is Halo and the car. But then you think about Nintendo, and maybe it's just because I'm biased, because I'm very, very set in Nintendo, but then I can think of like, okay, Mario, Pokemon, Zelda, Metroid, Splatoon, Animal Crossing, like Wario is technically a separate franchise, Donkey Kong, that sort of thing. It feels like they have such a range of IP still, like that are just all sort of on that similar quality level, and that is probably the thing they do best.
The other factor is their systems. Their systems they're not, oh, this is a number and this is like the more powerful version of this one. It's always a gimmick, which you can argue is not a good thing most of the time, but there's something unique to a Nintendo console that you can't, like, we don't even know what the next Nintendo console is going to be because they're always unpredictable. We just don't know. And like, even though it's, when they announce it, it's like, what? That seems like the Wii U, which I personally love the Wii U. That's a weird gimmick. It's just so cool. Like, a Nintendo Land is one of the best examples of like the Wii U's compatibility and how it's used. So I feel like Nintendo is just their uniqueness, even though that's a more broad answer. Their uniqueness and consistency is what brings them over the competitors, if you ask me.
And those are pretty much the answers I was given. Yeah, I asked why you came back here. It all just feels so bloody boring. You're mad because people like Nintendo? What, not an interesting enough story for you? Exactly! See, you get me. Look, if I tell you my issues with Nintendo, will you get out of my house? I might consider it.
Okay, I like Nintendo. I really do. But fuck! They can be really dumb sometimes. Not all the time, but when they are, you'll notice. With a strong example being their unfriendliness towards everything and anything that could potentially quote-unquote harm their brand. Fan games are a strong example. Every once in a while, one will sprout from the dark bowels of the World Wide Web, only to be smitten down by the hammer of Nintendo-flavored justice. 2016's another Metroid 2 remake is one of the first examples that comes to mind. Essentially a fan remake of the Game Boy game Metroid 2 Return of Samus that got slammed with a DMCA not too long after its release. There was also Pokemon Uranium from 2016 as well, which was pretty much just an entirely from the ground up original Pokemon experience that befell the same fate, all because it was made unofficially by fans of the series.
Those bastards.
On top of that, an interesting one on this list of takedowns is 2019's Mario Royale, as it was something I actually got to experience before its eventual execution. Basically, a bunch of people online would have to race each other through levels from the original Super Mario Bros., with the winner being the first to defeat Bowser. And from what I remember, it was a really fun experience. Nowadays though, it's nothing more than a firm reminder that reality fucking hates when I have fun. Speaking of Mario, does anyone remember this thing? Super Mario 64 HD. Based on what we've talked about so far, just guess why this one got taken down. I remember playing this thing all the time on my crappy laptop back in 2015. It was essentially just Bob-omb Battlefield recreated in the Unity game engine, and you ran around it stomping enemies. That was it. I don't even think there were any stars to grab. Despite that though, it was still enough for Nintendo to be like, oh god, who's gonna buy the Virtual Console re-release with this around? And like the others, it died. Overall, these projects being hit with DMCAs is a little stupid, I'll admit. But the thing about fan games is that they're only really taken down if Nintendo believes they could potentially damage the sales of something the company themselves already have released or are going to release. Mario Royale was taken down because Nintendo were about to bestow upon the world the glory that is Super Mario 35. or more rather was, since it's no longer being supported. And with both of these games now gone, I am thoroughly out of ways to fill that Mario Battle Royale shaped hole in my heart. Thanks, asshole. However, I wouldn't go as far as to say that's the worst thing Nintendo does. Plus, they are way more strict when it comes to things like emulation and modding anyways. They fucking hate that stuff. But that's really all they can do. Unless you're just straight up hacking online matches or selling pirated copies of their games, in which case, yeah, legal action is a given. But aside from that, at most all they're capable of is being really disappointed in you. And when is that held any value? Maybe there'd be less people emulating their stuff if their own alternative to playing legacy titles wasn't the Switch Online service. And that's a whole nother tangent in itself, which I will start now. I mean, I'll admit, when it comes to the most convenient way to play NES, SNES, and Game Boy games, yeah, sure, I'm most likely gonna use Nintendo's own service solely for the convenience. It's decently priced and very accessible, even if needing an internet connection at all times is stupid, stinky garbage. However, convenience is really all it's got going for it, cause, and call me crazy, but when you really look at it, the NES, SNES, and especially Game Boy selections are all still heavily lacking in content. Like, the convenience is nice and all, but what am I supposed to do when I have a hankering for all those third-party owned games? Go f*** myself? I tried, it didn't bring Kung Fu back. Hell, one of the main features of the Switch Joy-Con is motion controls. You couldn't make a version of Duck Hunt that used gyro or something? Now, I understand that's a wild opinion to have. What do you mean, Brandon? Just look at all those games! And I understand where that perspective is coming from, right? You have a service, they give you some games to play on, there you go, that'll keep you entertained for a good while and make you feel like your money was well spent. But I don't see it as just a standard online service to play games. I see it as a way to preserve these NES, SNES, and Game Boy games. And when you look at it like that and compare it to how many titles are actually on those original consoles, you find that there's actually a substantial amount of games still missing. No SimCity, no Chrono Trigger, and yeah, I understand some of these examples are due to the respective rights owners just not wanting to for whatever reason, and it possibly being out of Nintendo's control, but I don't care! I'm an angry consumer, I don't have time for rational thought, give me Paperboy! And this is all without mentioning the Switch Online Plus expansion pack. And let me tell ya, for 30 more bones a year, on top of the original 20, you can obtain access to N64, Game Boy Advance, and Sega Genesis games, all of which are still severely lacking in content, as well as get immediate access to DLC for Splatoon 2,
which no one plays,
Animal Crossing New Horizons,
which no one plays,
and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You know, assuming you haven't already bought the Booster Course Pass beforehand. Also, can I just mention the very personal, very specific vendetta I have against the N64 Switch button mapping? I get that they wanted the button names to match as closely as possible between the two controllers, but because A and B are placed differently than they were on the N64, it severely messes with my muscle memory, and the only way to rectify this is by going into the system settings and personally changing the button mapping there, which is not a convenient process. Anyways, so yeah, at the end of the day, I strongly believe the content provided in this expansion pass is just very okay. It's really only worth it if you're a diehard fan of N64 or Game Boy Advance games, and even then, there's barely any titles available on both those services right now. If these libraries were like tripled in size, then yeah, I'd be more confident in saying that it's worth the $50 a year. But that probably won't happen for a good while. And with all that being the case, it kind of feels like the idea of GameCube games ever getting their own online service will probably remain nothing more than just a dream, alongside every other unachievable goal like the one where I don't bitch about the luxuries I'm already lucky enough to have in my life. Anywho, that's all the main problems I can think of off the top of my head. But there still is plenty of other damning issues, like the lack of official methods to conveniently listen to Nintendo music. Either make a service or stop taking uploads from the internet, you can't have both. Another thing that really kinda tips me over the edge is the Switch's menu. It's boring. it's boring. Where's my themes, Nintendo? How am I supposed to scroll through my games but not actually play anything without my themes, Nintendo? Oh, and there's also the reason for 90% of my trips to the post office. Joy-Con drift! Man, I love spending $70 on a Pro Controller only for the stick to be completely unresponsive after 2 months. That's cool. What's worse is while they do have a free repair service, it's for Joy-Cons only, which works great when it happens to mine every few months. But what the hell am I supposed to do with this now?
Was that really necessary? Look, you got what you wanted. Don't judge how it's provided. I'll admit it was pretty vicious. Everyone else's complaints weren't nearly as, passionate. Wait, what the hell? You said they didn't complain about Nintendo. Oh, yeah. You want to know the funny thing about that? What? I lied! Let's flip the script here. What do you think Nintendo does worse than its competitors?
They're so bad at, like, I want to say, like, just being, like, friendly towards, like, the competition or understanding, like, what a general audience might be looking for. Because, like I said, like, they don't focus on graphics and they don't focus on, like, powerful hardware. But the Switch is, like, so old. It was outdated when it came out. Like, it was outdated when it came out, and so you got all these, like, newer games on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X coming out, and they're trying to port them to the Switch, and it just doesn't look as good. And it's like, I want to get these games for my Switch, but I can't, because they look like hot ass, and they run like hot ass. But I feel like they're also just, like, very negative towards, like, their own, like, community, like, taking down, like, Melee competitions, because they were, like, modded and, like, emulated and stuff like that. And also their mindset towards, like, fan community, like, projects and emulation and all that. It's really annoying because through fan created content, you get people, like, starting out, like, understanding, like, game development and game how to make a game and all, like, the working pieces to, you know, become a game developer in the future. And I feel like blocking that is just blocking people from, like, finding, like, their passion and their you know, creativity. Not everyone who's gonna make a mod or make, like, a ROM hack is gonna, like, go into game development, but there's been countless stories that's where people start.
Transparency. I think, I mean, that goes in a lot of ways, but it's mostly just, one, their plans for stuff like Virtual Console and older titles, making them completely inaccessible is just, they're the worst at it. PlayStation will give you their whole library of PS1, 2, 3, they'll throw them on. It's a subscription, but they'll throw everything on there. And it took us, what, like 3-4 years for Nintendo to give us NES Online, and that's it. It's just, it was ridiculous. And I think that they get greedy when they get comfortable. With the Wii U, they had no issue giving us Virtual Console because they had nothing else going on for the console. You know, they were just kind of desperate, and they were great. But, you know, now it's just like they've made so much money from the Switch that, yes, they're making good games, but it did kind of get to their heads a little bit. And I feel like they are just corporate at its core, and when they want to appeal to us in times of desperation, that's when they're, like, the most cozy, they're the nicest, that's when they'll give us stuff we want.
I mentioned a little bit before about nostalgia thing. Some people could find that negative on, like, how they kind of rely on the remasters a good bit, and also their pricing, especially, like, you know, Skyward Sword HD came out with barely a big enhancement on its visuals and like one feature locked behind a $25 amiibo, and it was still $60, which they've improved a little bit with like WarioWare, I believe, and Metroid Prime Remake. That was only like $40-50. So they've shown some kind of care with certain remakes and certain franchises, but overall their pricing structure, and like we've talked about before, some games releasing in an update format, it's not the best strategy and it's not the best look. Especially, I know Mario sports fans are probably devastated with the recent releases. I want Mario Baseball, damn it!
If you could change one thing about Nintendo, what would it be?
I'd improve the eShop, because using the eShop feels like I'm ripping paint off. Not even just watching paint dry anymore. I'm like watching it dry and repeatedly repainting it, and then watching it dry and then ripping it off, and then just watching the bare wall, because it's like, it's gotten so much worse. I can't think of something they've actually improved from the eShop since the Switch launched. I'm really struggling, mainly because I don't go on it like too often, but you know what I mean. Like it's every time I have to use it, I'm like, I'm gonna be here for like a business minute waiting for it to load and watching it lag as I tab through things. I don't care what you have to do, just make it better. Rewrite the whole thing from scratch. Make that your priority for Switch 2. I can't do that again.
Honestly, I would love to see them bring back the Miis more and start using the Miis again. Like, I feel like they were so iconic and so recognizable, but I feel like in the Switch era, they've kind of been sidelined a little bit. And I feel like a lot of people would like to see them come back, like either in games or just more as like mascots of the company.
Obvious answer is the hardware, because it's not great. I mean, it could be better. It's that they kind of very much so sacrifice technical aspects of the system so that you can take it on the go and stuff, and so that the casual people can really enjoy it to that degree, because they're not pouring all this money into the super high-tech chips or whatever that they're using in the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. They could definitely afford to do that, they just choose not to. Like, for what it is, the Switch has definitely made use of its hardware pretty well. Most of the games are pretty good and well optimized, unless you're Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, in which case it looks like a Roblox game sometimes. That's even an insult to Roblox, to be honest. But, like, yeah, that's definitely the biggest issue for me. Which, I'm not one to care about graphics that much, but sometimes it gets to me.
Nintendo isn't perfect. In fact, they're pretty far from it. But at the end of the day, for some ungodly reason, I'm still a fan of them and their games. It's a weird phenomenon to like something. We never really think too hard about it, we just know we do. These stupid pieces of plastic have been around for most of my life, and they hold so many memories of the pure bliss and ignorance that was my childhood. And even the newer stuff is really enjoyable too. Every game I've played through is its own little adventure, and you know, that's kinda cool.
I like when this guy jumps over things. It makes me happy.
Speaking of which, another thing I really like is the characters. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. Mario, Kirby, Pikachu, basically very recognizable and fun designs that you can look at and immediately go, hey! Nintendo. Like, I don't really think any other video game company has IPs as strong as these ones. There's some that are close, sure, but I don't know, at the end of the day, this is the company with Super f***ing Mario, so you're already fighting a losing battle. You know, as I've continued to talk about my past experiences, gripes, and general things I love about this video game company, the more I'm starting to realize there really isn't a singular pinpointed reason as to why I'm like this. I'd probably go insane trying to find one anyways. Yes, I would love to explain why the persistence of my virginity started with the invention of the DS. It's just a nice part of my life. From collecting physical games and consoles, to getting excited over new releases, to engaging with others over similar hobbies, to simply just playing the darn games. In summary, it's just fun. Beating Super Mario World for the 58th time is fun. Watching trailers for games I've been hoping for is fun. Staring at consoles I own and saying I own that is fun.
I own that. Do you have a favorite Nintendo-related memory?
A more specific memory, I was in a hotel room with like a bunch of like my friends when we were kids. Because I went bowling, I used to do bowling tournaments, and then like we'd go up to Syracuse to compete in these tournaments. And we were just in a hotel room, there's like 8 different like kids, and we're all on our DSs playing Mario Kart. Just with each other like in the room, and like that's probably the only time I ever done something like that, and it was just a really cool experience. I always cherish the moments where I'm playing games with like other people and like with friends, because I didn't really do that a lot growing up, and I still don't really do that now. So when it does happen and they're into it as much as I am, it feels really nice.
I remember being a kid and playing through Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 are very rich games. It's full of content. There's a whole lot going on there. And like there's so much side content, post-game content. Like once you beat the game, you are far from being done. I've probably put hundreds of hours into both of those games combined because I had both versions. I played both versions, and I just I did everything. Like I did all the side content, all the post-game stuff, everything that you could possibly do in the game besides completing the Pokédex because I'm not that crazy. But I did everything, and then I just kind of reached a peak, and then I went back to the the first town in the game, and there's a little balcony where you can overlook like a lake and stuff, and it's a very beautiful scenery. And I remember even as a kid, I just kind of looked over at that horizon. I'm just thinking, wow, I did it all. I never really felt such an emotional attachment to a game before that point, and then I was just like, well, it's done. I mean, I don't know what to do now. My life's over.
I can't remember where I was. I think I was outside of like Hateno Village or whatever, and it was like the day after my birthday, and my birthday's the 9th of March, so it was like a week after Breath of the Wild's come out, but I've only been playing for a day. And I just remember taking it and being like, this is a really good game. And I was like 11 years old, and I think it's when the cogs started turning on like what makes a good game and what makes a bad game. And I picked up this as a really good game.
I think some of my favorite Nintendo memories actually aren't really related to games at all, but rather to Flipnote Hateno, which was like the kind of social media on the DSi. I spent a lot of time on there when I was a kid. And I feel like it was a really like tight, like close-knit community, and I still think about it all the time and still miss it. There were so many iconic flip notes that I can still remember.
Well, I guess I kind of remember how I keep losing in every single match of like Kirby Air Ride or Star Fox Assault. Mostly those 3 main games, and Double Dash, of course. So that's mostly like 3 games me and my cousins would play out a lot. And we have our fair share of like rage quits and such. Mostly me.
I would say overall, one thing that has brought me closer to a lot of people would be Smash Ultimate. Because in high school, we had an hour of lunch, and they called it Power U or whatever. And me and a friend started a Smash Club. It's basically a group of like 15 people. And every lunch, or at least every other day on lunch, we would come together and we'd just do Smash tournaments, play Smash Ultimate. We even had like a Halloween party that we had celebrated and did Halloween themed Smash battles. We did that for like a year and a half. Like my junior and senior year, we mainly played Smash, and I was like, it's just something that brought me closer to a lot of people, made a lot of good friends, a lot of good memories too, especially when I had to leave school early. I remember that last day vividly because everyone's like, we're gonna miss you, and we did like one last battle with like the main like OGs of the club. It's just nice to think about. Like I wish I can go back to those days of just getting like that group of people and just playing, but everyone goes their separate ways. So I would say the most impactful Nintendo memory would be that one.
So childhood would be playing Super Smash Bros. Melee with my brothers. That was something that we bonded over, and we eventually became completely different people. And I think even to this day, we can still come back and we will play Melee when they come home for Christmas, or just family gatherings. That's something that we 3 can play, and I feel comfortable. I feel connected. Like that is the big core memory of my childhood, was playing Smash Bros. And just they would pick Donkey Kong and Falco, and just they kicked my ass, but it was still fun as a little kid to try.
And final question: how has being a fan of Nintendo affected your life?
It always gave me like a place of comfort. Because like growing up, like even though it was like the mid 2000s, being so like attached to like your computer and like your like game consoles and all that, it was still kind of like outcasty. And while I probably could have found like people who were into like these similar ideas as me, I didn't. And so coming home, I would always be like, I want to play these games. I want to like do this thing, because like I wanted to get away from like everyone else. And it's something that like I kind of still do to this day a little bit when I'm like frustrated or I'm like stressed out. I pick up a game that like I really like, and I play through it because it just gives me like a place of comfort. It's a better escape than like most other things I could have drawn to. So like I think in that way, like that's how it's like kind of changed my life, because it was kind of like it was always there for me,
Well, if it wasn't for Nintendo, I would not be here on the internet making YouTube videos about sometimes Nintendo games, and I wouldn't have this amazing community of people and friends. Honestly, at this point in my life, most of my closest friends are people like me who are Nintendo fans and who make Nintendo videos on the internet, such as my friend, you may not have heard of him, his name's DiscussionBound. He's a pretty cool guy. He likes Pac-Man a lot, though. He doesn't know how to stop talking about that guy. But yeah, I just really owe like a lot of my connections and friendships and all that, and my potential future. You know, I don't really know what the future has in store for me, but I'm not gonna stop making videos. And if it wasn't for Nintendo, then I wouldn't be in this position.
My YouTube channel revolves around, you know, Nintendo games, other games that made in Nintendo games, because that's like my primary focus as a video game player. And of course I'm going to make a YouTube channel about what I mainly play. Also, like, ever since I've sort of started playing games, it's always been in my mind that I want to go into the gaming industry, and that is kind of the path that I'm on right now. Like, I'm in my college course. It's not like go away college like in America. It's like the last 2 years of high school in a way, but I'm doing like a specialized course for like, it's like games art and animation, and it's all about like, you know, the creative process of making games and that. And then when I go to university, I'm hoping to do like a games production sort of course or whatever. So like basically I'm gonna hopefully be making games when I'm older, as well as hopefully doing YouTube. And it's thanks to Nintendo, really, because I started playing games when I was young, and I remember thinking like really early on, like, I want to make these things. People do make these things. I want to do that.
I feel like getting into Nintendo was kind of a gateway to a lot of different things for me. Like, it sparked interest in video games, it sparked interest in art, it sparked an interest in like other Japanese pop culture like anime, and a lot of those things have become foundational interests for me that like have carried forward up until today. And I definitely feel like had I not been stealing my little brother's DS and playing games, that probably I never would have gotten into any of those other things.
Well, it changed me to just doing YouTube since like 2015. I guess it pretty much started out with like a YouTube video of just Smash Bros, like with their like YouTube mode where you could just record your battles and then upload it to YouTube. And then it came to like just doing like Nintendo collections and all. And then it pretty much got me into like the Nintendo community even more. Just meeting new YouTubers or just doing animation work and such, which is awesome. And now I'm just like meeting like the big top guys, I guess, which is nice. It's a blessing. So I would have to thank the Nintendo for all this.
I would say definitely what I mentioned before about connections is meeting people similar minded, especially like this community that we have here. Not all of us are strictly Nintendo YouTubers, but a lot of us are, like, majority is just Nintendo. Like, we all love Nintendo, and that's something like I don't think I would have met a lot of you guys without making those Nintendo comments and being related to Nintendo. But also just it's all about just having fun, and I think Nintendo, if I don't, like, subconsciously, ever since I was a kid, just kind of implemented that mindset into me, and I'll just kind of like look at life like that. If I'm having fun with it, then I know I'm doing something right. I'm not wasting time.
Content creation, 100%. I would not be making videos if it wasn't for Nintendo. I used to dabble a lot way back in the day, and they're just like dumb little childhood projects, but, you know, I really liked talking about Nintendo, like in 2016, 2017, 2018. They were the driving force behind me collecting any games. They were the driving force behind me watching so many people play Nintendo games, or just games in general. I think, and I just hold content creation very dear to me. It's something that I literally, my whole life I've strived to do. And while Nintendo is not directly responsible for that, I feel like just them getting me into gaming when I was a little kid, and then just the internet, learning more about Nintendo and just being more involved in the Nintendo space years ago, really just got me excited to be, like, consider myself a fan of it. And you know, that's something that I have to thank them for. It's just being that driving force behind my favorite passion.
So, at the end of the day, I guess what we've learned here is the real answer to the question, what draws us to Nintendo, is the unique experiences each and every one of us has had and the positive and even negative effects that follow suit. Clearly, these games left a big enough impact to keep us as fans for so long. It doesn't matter which console you started with or what series you invested the most time into. It all leads to the same result of still enjoying Nintendo products to some degree. We all started playing their games at some point and just never fully stopped. and that's kinda it. Of course, I realize I'm just describing how most passions come to form, and that I could have just said that from the beginning. But while the final answer itself may be simple, each person's path and unique experiences are not. We're all fans of Nintendo, but we all got here by different means. And that's what's so interesting about the concept.
Yes! Yes! Now that's a story! Oh, thank God the material was thinning. This is all perfect! Now I need to get prepared for... Wait. What time is it? Well, I need to go to the store and then start preparation! Crap, I forgot to get my wallet back.
Welcome back to Channel L News, where our intro animation is paid for and copyright free. Now it's time we move on to a very special segment all about the immensely popular video game company known as Nintendo, and why their products are so engaging with the youth of today. If that piques your interest, then don't change that channel, because our man on the field, Tomboski Quantavius, is here to give us an exclusive look. Take it away, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Boss Man. This is Tomboski Quantavius reporting live outside the Nintendo headquarters with exclusive information on the company's secret tactics for enthralling the younger generation. And it's all documented right here.
That's not your research, is it?
Nope.
Should I say it, or do you just want...
Yeah, I'll leave.